Business Podcast. I am your host along with Carmen Davis. My name is Gary Davis.
Hello.
Are you there, Carmen Davis?
I am here.
That is very wonderful. This is a very special episode of this podcast.
Yes.
We don't want people to think that all they're ever going to get in the Native Business Podcast is just the Gary and Carmen Davis discussion.
No, of course not. Today, we're actually celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Native Business. So that is why.
Kind of all this month. All this month
Sure.
We're celebrating the special anniversary of Native Business.
It's kind of like the birth month, right? It's like you just don't celebrate your birthday. You just go for the whole month.
That's right. This is a birth month of this publication and all things with it. And we have a very special guest today on the podcast, our senior editor, Kristen Butler.
Hello,
Kristen, are you
Kristen.
there?
Hello, thank you. Great to be here.
And, we want to get into it. And I guess I'm just going to preface this, up front that this is not, I think in these first initial podcasts, it's just so happened that we've hit the month of July. We officially began Native Business online, July of 2018. Kristen, I remember you wrote and compiled many, many stories along with other great writers. You put together quite a bit of content over several months to get us going. And we all worked together really, really hard to make that happen. But what I want to say is that as we move forward with the Native Business Podcast, again, as this is a special episode, the podcast is about bringing voices together and bringing all of the other input, energy out there that exist across Indian country in economic development, in business, so that everyone can share their experiences, complete knowledge share, and that is ultimately what the Native Business Podcast is and will be in future episodes. It's just so happens that we have launched this and then ran right into the anniversary of Native Business. So of course we have to pay homage to a intense year of work, a very, very busy year. So we wanted to dedicate this episode of the podcast to really kind of talk about those things that we have accomplished over this year, because, so many people said it wasn't possible. They said that, you can't do it, all of the typical stuff that you hear people say that, sit on the sidelines and point their fingers and talk about what other people should and shouldn't do, which stifles so many people from getting started in business or, pursuing their entrepreneurial dreams or their business goals or just their life goals. Sometimes, it's so easy to talk. It's much harder to do. And so with that, I wanted to kind of set the stage so that, listeners don't think that every time they tune into the Native Business Podcast that it's going to be just you and I talking about business in Indian country.
Right.
So with that, Kristen, give the good folks out there a little bit of background on who you are.
Yes.
Kristen Butler. I'm the senior editor at Native Business. Prior to Native Business, I was with Indian Country Today for 7 years, editing the business sector and magazine, which is a financial magazine. And prior to that, I was at a publication for Harvard alumni. I had the privilege of coming on board, and we brought on a team of 12 contributors from across Indian country. Wow, it's been a year.
It has. It has been a very, very busy year, and we just want to acknowledge you and thank you and lift you up for all of the amazing work that you've done.
Yes, absolutely.
Over this year. Such great work, such great journalism. And of course, for folks that don't know, that have received Native Business Magazine across Indian country, across the United States and Canada and everywhere else around the globe that it is shipped, because it does leave the United States, it does leave North America, and it travels around to foreign countries, different places all over this world. And people are reading about business and entrepreneurship in Indian country. And those stories that everybody has, made so many good comments and remarks about are always looked at by you and, of course, Carmen, before that they go out there and people enjoy them and read them. for all things. So maybe, Kristen, just give the folks a little bit about what you do at Native Business and what a day in the life is like.
Sure. So, I mean, we're a multimedia platform, as you know. So we've got a website that we update daily with a couple or several posts per day. We run the 9 issues of the magazine per year. So a lot of that involves really taking this bird's eye perspective with both of you, who fortunately have a wide network across Indian country and, can identify a lot of those really important stories that relate to tribal economic development through the 24 sectors that we identify on the website, and then also bring that to life in the magazine through more in-depth reporting. I think that's what's really helped us create such a well-rounded issue.
And it is really that every time that we move forward with anything, whether it be for online or whether it be in the print publication or whatever that it may be, it's always that business lens. And I think that's the sounding board that we always throw everything up against, or the filter that we put it through is, what's the business case?
Exactly.
Thank you. And it's a ton of work, but work that's done so excellently. And so thank you for everything that you do. And obviously, folks out there are enjoying it. They're gaining and being benefited by it. And so, let's get into a little bit of this 1 year anniversary of Native Business. And it's hard to even say that because it doesn't seem like it's flown by that fast, but it has. It was all a dream, a little over a year ago. And, many, many things have transpired. And I think we're going to talk about, an exorbitant amount of things that have happened, people that we've covered, events that have happened. This podcast is literally launched before our year anniversary. Native Business has made some tracks over the last year. So, I guess we should get into, the impetus, the intention behind why we started Native Business. And I think, Carmen, if you'd like to speak to that.
Yes, absolutely. So over the last 20 years that we have had the privilege and honor to work in Indian country, travel throughout Indian country, we've developed so many relationships, friendships, really it's family all over Indian country, and getting to be in the communities and seeing all of their economic development, things that are happening in the community, and just really hearing their ideas of what has worked for them, also some of the challenges, what hasn't worked, and then us just being so fortunate to be in those communities, we've come away with, why doesn't everybody know about these stories? And how come, and we've just had the good fortune of even being at dinners where people are talking about the things that they're doing. And so it was just it came about very organically.
Because we would see that things are very bucketed.
Yes.
And that regionalized.
Yes, regionalized. Absolutely. And so it just came about very organically to want to share these stories and to really push, do our part to push the needle forward and to bring these stories together in one place, which is Native Business.
Because we would see people having conversations about all of their success and things that they've accomplished, and yet we would have been maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months or maybe even a year before at another community where they're talking about how do we do this or what are the ways to do this, and you would almost see this process being repeated where, anytime you start a business or anytime that you get into a sector, you start to realize all of the things that come with that, that journey. And you know where the mistakes are through experience. You find out those things, and then you move forward and you find out how to do it, and you hone yourself. And it just seems like, why would we not share those insights with each other when we're all trying to move forward? Everybody's trying to advance their economic development, and ultimately why, to be able to support their communities, to be able to create long-term sustainability and self-sufficiency. And if that's the end goal, why wouldn't we be more closely working together? And I think that knowledge share and that information, absolutely, just, it was so obvious that it wasn't being done to the degree that it could be done. And, when we first started, I think when we first started going live with content, one of the first things people started to say was, I didn't know that there were this many Native American entrepreneurs.
Right.
So what does that really say? That we very much so have a idea of who we are, yet there's thousands of people out there doing amazing things, and we haven't historically shown enough of a light or put up on a platform or a pedestal all of these amazing folks doing these amazing things for whatever reason. And I just think we felt like, why not?
Yes, there's a need. And so, there's absolute need. And one of the other things, to your point about entrepreneurs, and that there's many, many different faces of Native entrepreneurs. And so that's something that we really wanted to showcase, the different sectors. When we know there's tribal enterprises, and there's small businesses, and it really takes everybody, right, to create an economy. And so small business, it's so important. And as entrepreneurs ourselves, we know the struggle.
And the struggle is real.
Absolutely.
The struggle is real. And just to touch a little bit about what you just said, we have to really understand that if we're truly going to keep the money in our communities, there have to be Native businesses in the community where Native people can spend their money. And so many people listening to this are going to realize, what does your weekend look like? Where do you go shop? Where do you go buy your groceries? Where do you go spend your money? Where do you support non-Native businesses and Native businesses? And oftentimes there's really not too many Native businesses to support. And I think that's why we have to realize that if we're going to truly see thriving communities from an economic development point of view, if we're going to show our young people something different, we have to double down and invest in Native-owned businesses. And quite honestly, that's one part of the equation. But the other part of the equation is Native people need to realize their value and their worth and start these businesses and run these businesses. Because you can say that we want Native businesses, but if Native people don't show up, stand up, if we collectively don't get up and realize our strength and our value and our capabilities, it's impossible. It takes us to start these businesses.
Right.
And we have to support each other. And traditionally, throughout the years, there's just not been enough of that. We haven't seen that be the norm. So what do? We take our money off of the reservation and we go spend it in places with non-Native businesses, and they love it. They
see the value.
They absolutely see the value. They know what their checking account, their bank account looks like at the end of the month. So I think that's really something that I identified as much as, not only is it the tribal conversation, it's the entrepreneurial conversation, and it's moving, getting the information out of these buckets, these silos, and helping more folks realize by reading stories, by getting the information that we're sharing, that truly indeed they can learn from others and be bettered by others. But at the same time, our entrepreneurs out there, and we just came off of the Native Business Top 50 issue, and of course, that was our May issue. But I don't know that there's been any publication that's ever shown a light on specifically just Native entrepreneurs in business. And we wanted to do that to make sure that people are seeing that there are amazing folks out there doing amazing things. And it's not just in one sector.
Right.
It's across the board.
Right.
How many, just innovative entrepreneurs there are in Indian country who have, in most cases, had to do what they've had to do to get the capital to start their businesses, and who truly have subscribed to the idea that where there's a will, there's a way, and we can either make excuses or we can make a way. and they have made great progress in moving forward. So, Kristen, I think, throwing it back to you, we kind of started with the understanding of that, but yet, this is a business. It costs a lot of money to print a magazine that goes all over Indian country. We know that moving into this space, that many publications, almost all of the print publications, and I'll say that loosely, I think I know what the answer is to, but I'll still be generous, that they've all failed. They've all gone upside down. And we went into that, into this business knowing that is the case, and understanding that where in many other businesses, marketing and advertising is not a foreign concept. You get into business, you understand you have to tell to sell. But obviously these other companies in their publications weren't generating the kind of revenue that would allow for the business to keep publishing their magazines. So we weren't blind to that. And, maybe if you even want to speak a little bit to that, I'm sure you were like, oh, so you guys want to start a print publication? Everybody else is getting out of them. But we knew that to reach Indian country, of course, digital is amazing. Our digital numbers are amazing. We knew that was where the future is, but we also know that the print publication is very, very important to reaching folks in Indian country and to ultimately accomplishing part of the mission that we have, which is to share that knowledge and that information from so many business people across Indian country. So, maybe from an industry perspective, Kristen, you can kind of give a little bit more insight to all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think contrary to common perception or assumption, working for people outside of the media industry has been a huge advantage because you bring incredible perspective and you're not hindered by the limitations in the industry for decades might allow to prohibit them or deter them from moving forward. I mean, there's definitely a sense of fearlessness and ambition and drive that you bring to this multimedia platform. So, I mean, the print publication is full, and I do think that we are reaching a demographic that we may not reach through our digital outlets alone. And our cover subjects are just really amazing. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity to put people like Lance Morgan, the CEO of Ho Chunk Inc. on the cover, and Mark and Fox, chairman of the MHA Nation. I mean, that is just a testament to how we're representing Indian country on a national and international scale, I think.
Speaking about the issues that we've put out, we started first with the digital publication, and that began again last July. I know I want to say August all the time, but I know that I'm a month off. So last July, and we just really focused on the digital platform. And then in October of last year, we had our first teaser issue, which had Martin Sensmeyer on the cover, talking about his new role as a producer, not just an actor, specifically with the upcoming Jim Thorpe film. And then we went right into the inaugural issue. And, Carmen and I both figured, well, we have a duty sort of to tell people why we started this and to give people the understanding of why we decided to get into this business and what it's all for, and really tie it to the fact that, we as Native people always have been entrepreneurs. If you look at Cahokia, if you look at Tenochtitlan, if you look at these epicenters of trade that, we don't get taught a lot about in school, we don't get that knowledge shared with us as Native people about the amazing communities, the thriving communities, self-sufficient communities, self-sustained communities that attracted Native people from all over the place to come here, to those places and do business with each other and sustain each other. And it was just a testament to what we're trying to do still with bringing people together and creating these ideas of prosperity that are attainable. And it was the first issue, November 2018. And then our December issue was with
Yes, Lacey Horn she was the treasurer of the Cherokee Nation, and
she just recently stepped down.
Yes,
just recently, but served the Cherokee Nation incredibly well. A respected voice throughout Indian country in finance, and that was our first issue having to do specifically with finance.
Yes. All of our issues have been themed. January, February was our energy themed issue.
With the wonderful Aaron Shutt from Doyon up in Alaska. And that's the other thing, too, that we've also very much so wanted to cover Indian country, from Alaska all the way across to Maine, down to Florida, back over to California, to make sure that we're not, just looking at certain regions.
Right. That it's more inclusive, because a lot of times you hear, oh, well, that's lower 48 or that's Alaska Native. And yes, that's true. But at the same time, we're all indigenous, and it's to be inclusive.
Well, and you just see the amazing things that folks have done up in Alaska, and you go into Anchorage or you go into Fairbanks, and
you see the skyscrapers that are
mostly all
A and C's, Alaska Native corporations.
And it's just inspiring. So I think a lot of folks. I'm not saying that everybody's been to Anchorage. I know that not everybody's had the privilege. It's a bit of a trip to go up to Anchorage in Alaska.
So beautiful,
Fairbanks.
though.
But, for those folks that haven't, wow. I mean, it just blows your mind to see just building after building after building as testament to the economic successes of, the various different Alaska Native corporations. So we wanted to make sure that was included. And, of course, Aaron Shutt, Martin, our first issue was with a person from Alaska. So, we wanted to make sure that we're always inclusive and covering Indian country, as far and wide as we possibly can. And then we got into the March.
March was our infrastructure and federal contracting issue, and that featured Ho-Chunk Inc., CEO Lance Morgan. And, just all of these articles are just to me, it's just very inspirational as well. Just I'm learning about some new things too. And so it's really awesome to kind of, see just all the great things that they've done in their community.
Well, I mean, I think everybody is, nobody knows everything.
Right.
And I think that, when you have great thought leaders, when you have folks that are leading sort of, the tip of the spear in economic development and business and moving sovereignty forward through enterprise development, you're going to learn just the way that folks think and the things that they've done. And
especially because infrastructure, it's the backbone of economy and business. And to hear some of the things they were doing in terms of master planning, it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that some of the things that even Lance said were, I think after the story had been written by the great Andrew Rickey, I think we should shout him out. He's done all of our cover stories. I think I remember we were pulling into a restaurant or something, and you talked to me about some of the things that Lance had said in the infrastructure issue and how that resonated. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but do you remember some of the things that he said
because they really had a strategic plan. It wasn't just, okay, let's get this grant and let's put this grocery store way over here, or, let's do, they really had a plan. And that was something that really just resonated with me, is even though necessarily all the revenue wasn't coming from the same bucket, so to speak, that they had a plan of where they were going. And that was very, that everything made sense. And so that when they built their community, and they're continuing to build their community, that it makes sense, and it's something.
It wasn't just let's go put this here because there's an empty field there. It was very intentional, very strategic, and I think and that's why at the essence of community development and building out our homelands, there has been a lack of master planning your community. And for the folks that have done it and done it well, the successes are just part of that that forethought to be able to do it and do it the right way. And then you end up getting the results. And not only just from an economic development point of view, but from a community sustainability point of view.
Right.
That if you build opportunities for success, people to be able to work, people to be able to go to school, and you sort of have that intentionality, the success usually follows that. And I think that we definitely have seen that be the example that Ho Chunk Inc. and of course, Lance Morgan with his leadership have brought to the folks there. So we got then into the April issue, which I will say was distributed also at the National Indian Gaming Association. How many issues went?
An additional 4,500 issues.
Went to every conference bag at the National Indian Gaming Association, and we were also there.
Yes.
At
we had a booth there, so shout out to Chairman Stevens and the good folks at NIGA for their support of Native Business Magazine.
And, of course, the cover of the gaming issue was Governor Stephen Lewis from Gila River Indian community there in just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. An inspirational story and to see, again, an example of master planning your community and the intentionality that has gone into Gila River and all the great things that they're doing. And Kristen, that maybe just from a kind of behind the scenes perspective, I know that issue had its challenges logistically in the way of, I think we were on a plane right as we were trying to get it printed. It had to be delivered at a certain time. And, it's, I'll throw it back to you for just a second. It's always an interesting thing wrapping up some of these issues, but I think that one was particularly interesting.
That one was a little bit challenging. You and Carmen had been awake for about 24 hours, headed with the MHA Nation to the Netherlands. You were rallying through the entire night. I think we were at 6 a.m., my time. I don't know what time your time. Still editing that issue and putting it to bed. So, yeah, it turned out great, though. Super well-rounded. And one of the things I wanted to raise, when you were just talking about Gila River, really dive into the tribe's history and how they forged a path to economic prosperity over the course of many decades.
Because it's not just about where folks are today. It's about the journey, and it's about how did they get there. And I think in part of, sort of our very intentional editorial approach, it is telling, the story about who the people are and what has been historically the challenges, and how did that moment occur, or when did that moment occur where things turned or things changed, and then where are we today? And I think to tell that story more completely, and I think again, with our cover stories, Andrew Rickey has done an amazing job making sure that gets accomplished. And again, I almost kind of wanted to say Coach Butler, making sure folks stay focused and that nobody's ever getting off track, and that the stories are coming in the spirit of these sort of editorial guidelines that we have to make sure that we get the maximum value to the reader. And I think that's one of the things that we said going in. If somebody stops to take their time to pick up this publication and read it, that they will be better when they finish it than they were when they started it. There'll be something in this or many things, I think, in it that they will have been increased from just a best practices, or from just knowledge of business, or have taken something away from another leader, an entrepreneur, but also be inspired and motivated to continue to push forward. So I definitely think that we've accomplished that. And then, of course, coming out of the gaming issue, we got into a double issue. Specifically about the top 50 Native business entrepreneurs, the Native Business Top 50 Entrepreneurs for 2019. And we had two great covers it was our first double issue, so to speak. We had the president and vice president of the Navajo Nation, President Nez, and Vice President Myron Leiser. On the other cover, we had the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, Mr. Bill John Baker, the two largest tribes in the United States, sort of on both sides of the issue. And why did we do that? Because they both have stood for entrepreneurship. Vice President Leiser is an entrepreneur. Principal Chief Baker, very much so an entrepreneur, and has had many successful businesses. And President Nez and Vice President Leiser ran on a pillar of success in the Navajo Nation being entrepreneurship.
Well, they actually have a movement which is Buy Navajo, Buy Local. And so they encourage Navajo people to commit to purchasing goods on the reservation, which is just ultimately...
rather than sending the money out to border towns. Exactly. So that to even, hear about that, I mean, it's just when you realize the power in the dollar, in the sense of keeping it in the community and how that helps other Native businesses, it's truly inspiring. Vice President Leiser said that the Buy Navajo, Buy Local initiative is self-resiliency at its best. It's self-government. We challenge our people to recognize that they control their destiny, and when they change their purchasing decisions daily, it could lead to economic viability. So where you put your money, it's sort of the thing, whatever you feed will grow.
Yes.
Whatever you water will grow. Whatever you give your energy to will grow. And we have to realize that we need to be more intentional with our dollars. And I think, when I went back, I had a conversation actually knowing that this issue was coming out, that we were at the National Indian Gaming Association conference in San Diego, and I saw one of our great tribal leaders from Cherokee back in Oklahoma, Mr. Joe Bird. He's the Speaker of the Council. And we had a conversation about, imagine if, as a nation, we encouraged our people in certain towns to do business with certain businesses. And in the spirit of doing that, those businesses would offer a deep discount to folks for buying their goods from that business. And we would be able to see how much impact we were having as a people on those businesses. And in turn, those businesses would be motivated to give better deals to Cherokee consumers. And I think that is a model that we can replicate across Indian country. We should, if we don't have those businesses in our community right now, if those are not stood up, that we should pick those businesses that we choose to do business with, that treat people fairly, that appreciate that native dollar. And we should reward them, but they should in turn, out of mutuality, reward the consumer that's being pushed to come back in there. So deeper discounts than you would find in other businesses. And it becomes an economies of scale model where, it's the number of people that are coming in there. And again, being intentional with your dollar and having that mutuality, because so often people just, they take your money and they give you something and they probably don't even appreciate you, don't treat you well. And then you go back
and
out
the treating you well, I mean, that is huge. A lot of these border towns, I mean, let's be real, let's be honest, that there is just a lot of racism that still exists. And so they don't appreciate our dollar. And there are a lot of border towns where our people are not getting treated
that's right,
as they should be. So I just think that it's a powerful concept. And I just, I'm so happy to read that. And also just a sidebar, Vice President Leiser delivered a powerful speech at the Native Business Summit.
Which will soon be on the Native Business YouTube page.
So excited.
That we'll be happy to share with everyone. But again, it's these inspirational folks that have these great ideas and that have turned those ideas into initiatives and put them out there, put them in motion, and really helping folks understand that if we want to control our destiny, we have to control our dollars. And of course, this I can hear a lot of folks saying, "Oh, well, it's all about." No, it's not all about money.
No,
but it is kind of in a way a lot about money. If we want to see things done differently, we have to do differently.
Right.
And you have to be strong enough to understand that you may have to drive 15 more minutes to go make it happen. but you should spend your money where you feel like somebody appreciates it. And if they don't appreciate it, don't spend your money there. We go into a person that absolutely believes and feels this way.
Yes.
I don't want to speak for him, but I have, again, another great speech at the Native Business Summit that happened back in May in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Chairman Mark Fox spoke about dependency. He spoke about we have to free ourselves from that dependency from the federal government and from other folks. And we have to look at our own capabilities. We have to look at our own economic generation, the ability for us to generate our own dollars and really double down and invest in that. And that is absolutely what needs to happen. That is the future. And I think that's a perfect segue into the issue that features him on the cover. Our June issue.
Yes, it's agriculture, natural resources, and tourism.
And you find really the core story that he's on the cover about is the trip to the Netherlands and their food sovereignty initiative on really looking at the opportunity to not just feed the good folks there at MHA, but to also look at how it can be a economic development component of the nation to help feed other folks and to look at that as a way to provide self-sufficiency and sustainability for the community. So, we've covered a lot of topics and amazing covers over the last several months, and that's brought us to today. I know that we don't want to make this episode too long, but we definitely wanted to, just take a moment. That folks say sometimes that the natural inclination is to get so focused on what the end goal is of where you're trying to get that you forget to appreciate the journey. And the journey is really the reward.
Right.
And I think that's something that it's important. It's important to step back and just...
Well, absolutely. And that's why we wanted to include Kristen on this podcast and also to acknowledge the other writers, the 12 contributors that make these stories happen every issue, because it's something that, we have a team. Yvonne, we have Yvonne as well, and she's our event director, and just there's so many people.
Well, and I think we should just talk about Yvonne for a second. Yvonne, has done so much in the way of just helping build up this organization and to really help us achieve the goals, because there's the idea of what you want to accomplish, and then there's all of the little things and all of the work that has to go into building that road to get there. Mm-hmm. And it's been all of the great work from the team. And I think that what Yvonne has done, not just in the way of support, to you and I operationally, and some of the great things that she's done with our database and all of those great things, but she is a consummate professional when it comes to event planning. And of course, we knew that she was the one that we wanted to have on the team with regards to the Native Business Summit.
Right.
And I think all of the things that in my event life, in producing events across Indian country, specifically, on the economic development side of things, she has been a part of my core group of folks, and wanted to make sure that we had her on our team, and just can't say enough about our good friend Yvonne and what a great job she has done. And you're only as good as your team. So I think that we'd be remiss if we did not acknowledge Yvonne and all the great things that she's done. And of course, when you look at the magazine, when you look at the great things that it stands for visually, so many people have complimented us on the caliber of the publication. And that absolutely has been from another Native person, Kim Tyler.
Yes.
A proud member of the Navajo Nation. And she's done an amazing job. She's actually going back to school, so we're going to miss her. But she has raised and set the bar very, very high at Native Business for all of the great things that she's done, just to make sure that aesthetic is so strong, and we're going to miss her, but we wish her well, and we've got some other good folks that are coming in to make sure that we go forward in the right way. But those two folks have been so intrinsic to our success over this
key.
last year.
I mean, just and again to.
And by the way, Yvonne's not leaving.
No,
but,
no.
I just want to make sure.
No, but just to acknowledge, all of the people that have, made Native business go forward, because even though obviously we are the publishers and, it requires a core team. And so we just really appreciate our team, and we appreciate, because without our team, we would not have been able to take Native business to where it is at today, and to reflect on all these good things, right?
Well, and I just want to say thank you to all of the folks that have supported out there across Indian country.
Absolutely.
Who have shared, with their friends, their family, other good folks out there about Native business. All of the support that we've received in that way, I think it's just been invigorating, and please continue to do that. Let people know about the Native Business Podcast,
yes.
And all the great things that we're doing. And if you haven't liked the YouTube page, of course, please do that, and Facebook and Twitter, and all of the great things that we're doing on social media. Instagram, we can't forget the gram. So many people out there do it for the gram on a daily basis. We would not want to forget the gram. So speaking of all of the outreach and all the great things, why don't we talk a little bit about a phenomenal thing that I think we accomplished in the first year of Native Business, which was the 300 plus people that came together in Tulsa, Oklahoma, May 13th through the 15th at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, which we had the Cherokee Nation businesses, good folks there, serve as the presenting sponsor, and many, many other great businesses and tribes and tribal enterprises and entrepreneurs and companies that also supported and sponsored. And 24 trainings. You'll be hearing more podcasts that were recorded live there at the Native Business Summit here over the next several weeks. We have actually 5 more podcasts. Our good friend Mika Leonard, who came in and co-hosted the podcast there at
she did amazing.
Business Summit. And one of them, if you haven't heard it, is the Hemp Conversation that is live right now on wherever you get your podcasts. And so, we were able to do, I think, some amazing things there. And I got to say, when the pictures are going to be coming soon, but you really capture the epicness of what we did over those few days there in the visuals. It was a stunning, I think, very impactful, inspirational event. And we also had join us Miss Oklahoma USA.
Yes.
Triana Brown. And it was outstanding. So anything you have to add to that?
I just really walked away from the event. You have to, obviously, it was our event. So it's kind of like you have to put your other hat on and just kind of look at it from an outside point of view. And there was a lot of good energy, and just having, the principal chief, Bill John Baker, he did a Cherokee Nation. He did an amazing keynote. There was a lot of great feedback on his keynote.
Governor Lasani?
Yes, from the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe. And we, just amazing keynote speakers. She closed out the summit with such an inspirational and motivational speech that I love her. I'm not going to fangirl over her, but I love her.
Well, there you have it. You heard it here first on the Native Business Podcast.
So, you just, again, walking away feeling just very motivated, very inspired by all the people that came to share and give their great insight.
And I just want to make sure the good folks know who you were talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Lacey Horn.
And again, the former treasurer of the Cherokee Nation. So, Lacey, you have a fan. If you come out with any music, or if you have a T-shirt, I know somebody that'll be wearing it and listening to it. I completely agree with you. It was just really an energy that was consistent. All of these different folks that had come from literally all over Indian country, and as much as it was held there in Oklahoma, there was a tremendous amount of folks literally from all over the place, and including Oklahoma, but we had folks from Alaska, we had folks from New York, we had folks from Florida, we had folks from California, literally across the country. We even had folks from Canada, and a sold-out trade show. The golf tournament was sold out, and artisans. We had just an amazing gathering of folks that I truly feel were benefited from it. We had 24 trainings, 6 of those were podcasts. And just an incredible amount of panelists that are respected voices from all over Indian country that came together. And one of those panels, Kristen, you were the moderator. So speak about a little bit about that panel, the women's business panel.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting to look at the statistics that exist for women in business at large, and then to really narrow that down and see the disparity that exists for Native women in business, access to capital, a gap in wages, and to rather than look at it from a perspective of, well, this is unfortunate, to really say, well, what can we do? How do we step up and how do we create and affect change? And I mean, the input that everyone had, Carmen, Lacey, and Victoria, was really nothing short of profound. It was, I think everyone left. I mean, afterward, people in the audience there were like lines of people wanting to talk to Carmen and Lacey and Vicky Vasquez.
Victoria Vasquez from Tribal Tech LLC. There in Washington, D.C., a great business and a great woman-owned business at that. Just an amazing entrepreneur that she is. And, I think that we should come out of that a little bit. I mean, I know that we're trying to keep this within 30 to 45 minutes. I think we've already lost that battle at 30 minutes. But I think one of the things that we would definitely want to talk about that we've accomplished again is this Native Business podcast and the fact that I think we're on 15 different platforms with the Native Business Podcast. And I think, again, the idea is the same as it is with the magazine, to be able to create more knowledge share, to be able to have great folks that are out there doing great things. Instead of reading about them, you can hear about them. Every article that we've written in the magazine, stories that have appeared online, will eventually be turned into podcasts to be able to share that great amount of progress that on a daily basis folks are putting forward and running their own businesses, and what that means to other up-and-coming Native entrepreneurs and the next generation of our people and entrepreneurs that are out there working at it every single day, the motivation, inspiration, the best practices, all the great things that they can pull away from what other folks are doing. Any other things to add to that?
I just want to say one of the things I don't think we talked about was the debut of Native Business TV. And
did you think about Native Podcast? I mean, you don't care about that?
No, I do care about.
Did you just blow me off?
No.
Was that a shh?
No. I
want to talk about Native Business TV. I'm done with Native Business Podcast.
No,
Kristen, did you hear that?
No comment.
I think I got cut off. Okay, so I got an idea. How about we talk about Native Business TV?
I thought I'm sorry, I got pulled out for a second, to be honest.
Oh, did you?
I thought you were talking about anything I wanted to add that we didn't cover. So I know we talked about Native Business Podcast.
That too.
Okay.
Why don't you just talk about whatever you want? How about Native Business TV?
Yeah, let's do that. So one of the things really quickly, that we are going to further develop is Native Business TV. And the debut of Native Business TV happened at the Native Business Summit, where we had Triana Brown, who is a member of the Chickasaw Nation and who is also Miss Oklahoma USA 2019 and second runner-up at the recent Miss USA pageant in Reno, Nevada. She did the daily wrap-ups there. We also debuted the food sovereignty, the MHA Nation food sovereignty video.
Film.
Yeah, which was it's 7 or 8 minutes, which I would highly encourage anyone to go watch because
At YouTube?
YouTube, yes.
Search Native Business.
Yes.
And subscribe.
And please subscribe, because we need more what do you call it?
It's subscribers. And,
yes.
We can't get, apparently, thank you, YouTube, thank you, Google, our own domain sort of URL at YouTube until we get X amount of subscribers. So please help us get to a domain that we can direct you to sooner than later, and subscribe at the YouTube page there. Just search Native Business and it'll come right up.
Please do.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, it was just an amazing documentary short film that we were able to record while we were in the Netherlands that show all of the great things that transpired there. I think a lot of people have been inspired and motivated by what they saw and the great things that happened. And what a privilege to be able to show people. I mean, it's one thing to tell people about what we saw in the precision farming, the amazing innovation that's happening in horticulture, the glass houses and the expanses. I mean, I just don't think people realize how many greenhouses and glass houses. And we were able to, I don't want to say commandeer a drone, but we were lucky enough to be able to find a person there that had a drone, and they put it up to really capture that shot of just there's glass houses as far as you can see in an area of the Netherlands called the Westlands. And from that all the way to the Dutch ministry in The Hague, where we went to sit down with the good folks there in the agriculture ministry, and all the way out to almost not even 400 yards from Belgium.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we
covered some ground for sure.
We did the Netherlands. We sure did.
Well, and to kind of continue on that, this is a project where we are going to continue to follow all of the progress on that. So definitely, that even though that was a documentary short, we're still going to continue to cover the progress, because it's such an important initiative for sure. And
all the great things that other folks are doing out there that will actually be putting production behind to tell that story, because I do think there's a great amount of storytelling that could be done visually through these videos that really impact folks. And it's that whole thing. I can show you better than I can tell you. And sometimes that image, that living, breathing image of just seeing something translates so much more vividly than people hearing it or seeing it in other ways. So we'll definitely continue to expand upon that. And with that, Kristen, do you have any final thoughts on this 1 year of work, blood, sweat, and tears that has gone into I should say, all things Native business?
I would like to commend us, for following through on all the goals that we set. I think that's really impressive. I was amazed at how much we intended to accomplish within a year, and, it's really incredible to look back and say, we did that and we followed through on our word. What a great foundation to build upon as we go forward.
No, absolutely. I agree. And that's something that Gary and I both tell our kids. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Thank you to everyone that has supported, to our advertisers in the Native Business Magazine, to the people, our sponsors at the Native Business Summit. We absolutely could not do this work without sponsors, advertisers, readers, and for all the people that have shared stories on Facebook, social media. Thank you for the support, and thank you for believing in another Native business.
And with that, I think it is time to wrap up this episode of Native Business, and we want to make sure that the good folks out there know where to find us on Facebook, Native Business Magazine, Instagram, Twitter, Native BizMag, YouTube. Please, again, subscribe. And with that, we want to say thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Native Business Podcast.